Welcome to the 4 Mile Circus Podcast. 4 Mile Circus Podcast is a production of 4 Mile Circus, an independent media services company in Brooklyn, New York. My name is Sean Mannion, and I am one of the hosts of the show.
And I'm Nicole Solomon, the other host of the show, the other half of 4 Mile Circus. And on today's episode, we are going to be bringing you part 2 of our interview with author Joselin Linder, who has written the book that probably by the time you hear this will have already been released. It's being released on March 14th. It is called The Family Gene, and it chronicles the effects of a deadly genetic mutation that's unique to her family, as well as her family's efforts to stop it. So today we're going to talk to her about her life as a working writer. But first, Sean has a tip for us today.
So for this episode's crowdfunding tip, as opposed to social media tip like we usually do, I thought I would offer a little advice on making your crowdfunding campaign more of a team effort. So as I think anybody who's even tried to do a crowdfunding campaign knows, it can be a very solitary endeavor at times. You can start to feel a little bit alone. As much as it's about the crowd, sometimes you're sitting in front of a laptop and on your phone, tweeting, Facebooking, sending messages, posting things to Instagram, cutting the pitch video, cutting update video, something like that. It can feel a little alone, and many of our projects that any of us are doing for crowdfunding purposes are often team projects. Even if you're writing a book, maybe you've got some friends who have been helping you, or who have a strong interest in what you're doing, or maybe they're making the book cover. If it's a film, films are always a team effort. There's if you're the director, there's the DP. Maybe you've got a producer, you've got actors. Either way, whatever creative endeavor or other endeavor you have that you're crowdfunding for, usually there's some other people involved. And while oftentimes one person will be the point person, it's always better to spread it around a little bit. And one way to do this is to make that part of your planning. One thing I did for the Time Signature crowdfunding campaign that I raised money for a short film called Time Signature on Seed and Spark back in 2014, is I engaged everybody who had already committed to the project, all the actors, and including recent guest Hae Yun Park, and star of the film Kitty Ostapowicz, as well as just everyone who was engaged with what we were doing, and I clued them in on the plan. I had planned out tweets for every single day. I had planned of the 30-day campaign, Facebook posts for all of them. And I shared that with them. And I said, hey, here's something. Like, it doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be you figuring out how to share it or what to do. Like, here it is, cut and paste. And that's the best thing to do when you're trying to engage other people to help push a project like that, is make it as simple as possible for them. Just make it a cut and paste. Give them a document, and say, all you have to do is on Monday, cut this out, paste this into your Facebook. Cut this out, paste this into your Twitter. Take this image, put it on your Instagram. Something like that. Some people will do it every day. Some people will do it occasionally. The point isn't that they're going to be as active as you as the point person, but that it's very easy for them to be active and that you can help them do it. Probably the one change that I would make to that particular strategy that I took for that project would be to instead of giving them a single document at the beginning of the campaign, would be to simply maintain contact throughout. Give them things to share every couple of days, or maybe not every day, but some of them maybe every day. Like some of the people who are it's not necessarily like a criticism that they're not more engaged. It's simply the fact of life. is while you're pushing your campaign, while I'm pushing my campaign, the other people involved in the campaign, the other people involved in the project at large, they have to pay their bills. They have to, maybe they have to take care of their kids or their parents or their significant others, or they have to be taken care of, something along those lines. They're just, life happens. So some people will be in it with you every day and just make it easy for them. Just send them something, cut and paste. If they ask how else they can help, have a very simple task for them to do. Don't. It's a high pressure situation being in doing a crowdfunding campaign. It can be stressful, and you can alleviate some of that stress by doing this for yourself, by bringing other people in. But you don't want to overwhelm them, because then it'll just create more stress for yourself. The easier you make it for the people who are helping you, the easier you make it on yourself. And don't fall into the trap of assuming that you can't ask anybody to do anything, and you might as well just do it yourself because you're the one who's going to do it the best. Tailor things to work with the people that you're working with, and that's going to help. Time Signature was funded very much on helping the team to spread the word and showing them, here, why don't you do this? Tweet this out, post this to Facebook. Here's a thing that I'm working on to try to drum up more interest. Why don't you come participate in it? We'll do weekly video updates. I did weekly video updates with the lead actress, Kitty Ostapowicz, and that was very effective. We as side by side, personally thanked everybody, and it was a simple thing for us to do, to get together, to sit down, put a camera on us, and just say thank you and give a quick update, and think about what you can do to engage your team, to be more than just names on a list. If they can help be one of the faces for what you're doing, see how you can make that work. That doesn't always work out, but there's some strategy in there that works for your project and for the team that you're working with, and adapt what you're trying to do to fit those people. And that is my crowdfunding tip for this episode. So I'm just going to give it back to you, Nicole.
So great tip, Sean.
I don't believe you. I don't think you liked it. You didn't say a word.
I was so stunned by its poignance
and brevity.
And yeah, I just didn't have time. I was like a deer in headlights, like we were talking about last episode. That was me with your tip.
Absolutely, it was stunning.
Yes. So now that we're unstunned, we can actually talk to Joselin, who's here today.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So you have managed to actually make a career for yourself as a writer, which is not an easy feat. And your memoir, your excellent memoir, I should say, I vouch for this book. I like it very much. It is very funny and very informative and very emotional. It's one of those things where it's genuinely like, you'll laugh, you'll cry, but like really sincerely, and all the laughs and tears are like 100% earned. It's rarely have I read a book that is both so heavy and so buoyant with humor at the same time.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you for writing it. It's fucking awesome. So anyway, now that I've talked about how great that is, I want to talk to you about that in a minute. But first, I wanted to ask you about some of your earlier work, because you've written some other books, and can you tell us about those and how those came about specifically?
Sure. So I should start by saying that when I went to sell the memoir with my agent, I was told never to talk about these books again.
Oh, no.
No, but I think it's hilarious. So of course I can talk about these books. I wrote them all, but it was largely because they were writer for hire, which is, it's not that it's frowned upon. It isn't at all frowned upon to do writer for hire work, and I will talk a lot if you want about why it's a good thing, I think. But what can happen is, a lot of times in writer for hire situations, you're paid a lot less and there's not as much pressure on the book to do well. But what that also means is you end up with a lot of books with low book sales because nobody's promoting them except maybe you. So that's what happened with I think several of these books. So I had this sort of like, she's like, just don't mention them, and then they won't look when you're trying to sell your book, so it's okay, it's fine. But
sorry to mess up your branding strategy.
You ruined me. I love that I wrote these books. Like, I think they were so much fun, so silly. Like, most of them had a humor base, which is like my favorite way to write. And as I was writing each one, I was like, this is like the luckiest thing. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm in my backyard in the sunshine writing like a list of, like, one of the books was like a 10-item list book. It was like every page had a 10-item list, and I just wrote like 200 or 300 of these lists.
What were the lists of?
The book was called The Best Life Lists. Best Life's List. I'm not sure.
So it's a tongue twister.
Tongue twister, written by Dee Dee Claremont, again because of see my last note about like book sales being low. So they were like, you need a different name on this book. But it was ridiculously fun because it was like, like 10 tips for putting on lipstick, or like 10 tips for a great updo. Like, it had to be like very simple, light 17 magazine type lists for women in their 20s and 30s. Yeah, so it was super fun. I mean, it was ridiculous, and it actually got out of hand because at one point I was like just making crazy lists. It was so many lists that I think I advised in one list how to travel alone, and then in another list I was like the 10 best places to swim and like in the world, and then I included like some really like war-torn dangerous river with like syringes. Somebody caught it. They were like, I don't think that's a great place to swim. And I was like, oh,
I mean, if you love danger, it is.
Yeah.
Some people love danger.
So but that book was fun to write. And they all were kind of fun. I mean, none of them, there weren't high stakes, let's say that.
So how did you get into doing writing for hire and writing these books? So like, there was that. I know you did like a purity test book and like a book about like cohabitating and like a lot of stuff, some books about gamification, a lot of
yeah, the gamification books were actually the exception. They were I got that job through a friend of a friend. It was actually a friend's boyfriend, and he was like a sort of a guru in this gamification movement or field, and I had published at that point, a book called The Good Girl's Guide to Living in Sin about cohabitation, and I had published, I think I was publishing or had just published a book called The Stone Family Robinson, which was like a mashup, kind of ridiculous. But he wanted to publish, and so I had advised him. I said, you kind of have two choices when you're an unknown entity, and one is you have to build your audience and be like, you have to be able to answer the question, why should I write this book, right? So he kind of had that answered. But the other thing you can do as a sort of an unknown quantity is you can find a writer to kind of co-write with, and then often they'll help you with the channels by like, their agent. So you kind of work together, like his cachet as a gamification guru, and then my, agent and sort of knowledge of writing books kind of came together and worked out really well. So we wrote 2 books together, and they actually did okay. But I think he was often credited as the primary writer, so they didn't give me the same level of like, cool.
Sure.
But
so he came to you based on your track record with like previous books. How do you get into that field? Like, how do you get a job as like, we need someone? I assume it was the kind of thing of like somebody had a concept already for a book to be written. We're like, Joselin, will you write this book that we've already come up with? It wasn't you pitching these ideas mostly.
Yes. So I had met an agent socially, and I was working in film, and she, like, we were somewhere and she said, have you ever written a book or thought about writing? And I think we were in a conversation, and I made a joke that I didn't date. I like cohabitated. Like, I was just like in this habit of like every guy I dated, I would just live with, or I lived with already and then started dating. It's very awesome 20s. So I was telling her that story at a party, and I think she had recently heard of a title that was being they were shopping for a writer, and it was called The Good Girl's Guide to Living in Sin. And she said, would you want to write this book? And I said, oh, I was like, yes, that would be so fun. And so I, again, like I was working in film and I had time. So she paired me with so I wrote the pitch and she liked the pitch, but she said, I can't sell you. You're nobody. Because it's like the question, why me? Like, why should I? Like, right. There's no reason. I'm a girl who wants to write a book, who, has lived with a few guys. Like, I didn't really have that background. So she's like, I'm going to pair you with this other writer who's an editor at Bridal Guide magazine and is a relationship expert just because she has that, credential. And it kind of worked out in my favor because that particular person, I think, came in thinking it's my book or something. I mean, maybe she didn't. Maybe she understood that it was a writer for hire. But I think because I had already written the pitch, she kind of came on and was like she's an amazing writer and an amazing person, but she was sort of deferential in that way that you're brought into something. So I kind of had that lucky thing happen. But anyway, so she came in and I still got to pretend like I was like a real writer. And she was like, it's our book. I need to stop saying bad things about that. But you know what I mean? She sort of came in and allowed me to be equal with her, which I think it could have worked the other way very easily.
Absolutely. And that's awesome that you had that experience. So it seems like that sort of thing it's good to get hooked up with an agent to get that kind of work. Do you have any advice for writers about how to get an agent? Either because I know there's also different kinds of agents for different kinds of things. Like there's the agent who's going to sell your book that you wrote and you're like, I've got this book, I want to find a publisher for it. But then there's like an agent to get you work for hire, kind of stuff. Like how does somebody go from being like a blogger or, maybe somebody who's pitched a couple websites and has like a couple credits, but, not somebody where you've got people coming to you yet kind of thing. Like how do you do that? Tell me how to network, Joselin. I want to network.
This is a hard question. I mean, my first instinct is like move to Brooklyn because they're like at the dog park. They're kind of everywhere. But I think that
so stalk the dog park.
Stalk the dog park. I mean,
how many of them do I have to sleep with?
Seriously.
Like, I'm not saying that you did. I'm just saying like I'm not a good writer, so how much of my body do I need to use?
People.
Okay.
Yeah. Depending on how good a writer you are.
I mean, I'm pretty bad.
15.
Do you really think that's going to help you, though, Sean? just genuine question. Maybe you should bake cookies. You bake really nice cookies.
I do.
So go to the dog park with a bunch of cookies. They'd be like, hey, are you an agent? I got a cookie for you, because that's not creepy at all.
So I think if you are a writer and you are... and that's what you do. If you need a manuscript of some sort. If you are a person who has, I think nowadays writing also or having a book can also be a part of a branding device. If you're a business owner or you're trying to sort of be this expert in your field, it often gives you a lot of clout to say, oh, I wrote this book about it, and it's a good calling card. So there are people that are doing that much more than ever before. And so in that regard, so for that one, I would say find a writer with an agent, and that's how you get an agent, sort of hitch your wagon, and then that's a great way to do it. If you're a writer, you need to start with a manuscript and you need to have, or at least a really comprehensive, fleshed out idea. If you're writing, so it's two things. If you're writing fiction, often it's, you need a complete manuscript to turn in. If you're writing nonfiction, you need a very well fleshed out idea or a pitch. So you can sort of see sample pitches online, or if you know anyone who's written them, ask to look at theirs. But that's the kind of thing. And I think it really, certainly with the pitch one, really ask yourself, why me? Why am I the expert on this topic? I mean, I am not a science writer, but I am so now that I've written this sort of science-based memoir, I actually can sell myself as a science writer because I have a science-based memoir. But the reason I can do that is because it's a memoir, and I had a personal story that had these stakes that allowed me to sort of explore genetics and the history of genetics and the history of genomic medicine, or genomic. We were talking before about how to say that word.
I may have mispronounced it on the last episode.
I'm pretty sure it's pronounced genomique.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, but the whole point being that you have to know why you. So that it is a really important question, because it's really easy to be like, I have an amazing idea about cheese that I want to write. It's like, great, but why should I buy it from you?
Yeah.
And that's going to be the question they're going to ask. So also, building your audience, becoming a person that somebody wants to buy a book from. So you can take some steps earlier before you're actually in the process of getting an agent, or while you're getting an agent, start, building those things.
Yeah, we talked about some of that in the last episode about how you can use social media to like build community. Blogging is another way that's like a usually free way that you can start getting your writing out there and build an audience for your writing. And that's a thing I assume you can take to an agent, or if you're writing up a pitch or whatever, be like, my blog attracts however many unique visitors a month. So like those are all potential, people. Or I assume that increasingly people want to see social media numbers too. That's what.
Oh yeah.
That's what people have been telling me. So you were saying that you think doing writing for hire is a good move, even if like sometimes it's seen as like not the branding best thing. That's a sentence that came out of my mouth.
So maybe writing for hire is maybe not the best thing for branding, but you don't necessarily think that. Is that kind of what you're going to...
Yeah, what do you think is good about it? Because
I don't think it's bad for branding. That's different, because that's your audience. I think it's bad for industry, right? So for
Gotcha.
like if the publisher goes to check your numbers and they suck, that is not good for you when you're trying to sell a book.
Right. And that's something you don't necessarily have much control over, or it's not your fault. Somebody,
right.
But so that's it.
And I don't think it can't really impact you negatively unless you're really verbal, unless you're going to be running around like I wrote, because you can always do the job, write the book, put your name on it or not. And then just like if it doesn't do very well, just don't bring it up when you're trying to actually sell something for a lot of money. Just don't mention it. And it's okay that it exists. It's just they don't want you to, for them, it doesn't make any sense for you to tell them about it. It's just like...
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you were saying earlier that like you would be happy to talk about some of the reasons you think it is a good thing for writers to do, and you're in favor of it. So I was wondering about what you think some of the advantages of going in that direction, or under what circumstances, which writer profiles, say, might choose to do that rather than investing your time and energy into... I'm going to write and refine an original manuscript and try to sell it. Instead, try to find like pre-existing projects to get hired to write for. I can think of some reasons why I think it's a good idea, but I'd rather hear from someone who knows what they're talking about.
I mean, yeah, I mean, they're probably the same, but I think, I think first of all, anytime you're doing the thing that you want to do for money, it just feels really good. And I think, when you're writing for hire, you're certainly giving up creative control in the sense that you typically told what you're basically writing, so you kind of, but often you have your own control within that form, that structure, but, you have to sort of give up the bigger, creative control. Like, for example, I when I wrote the Stone Family Robinson, I was given a horrible manuscript, like some translation that was like from 1942 or what. It was so old and it was so verbose and really complex. And my job was to go in and change the actual text and write this. And by the end, I had just scrapped it and was just writing my own, like the Disney movie version of this book, because it was just such a tedious slog to get through this horrible manuscript that they gave me. And I just didn't mention it. So when they were reading the first, probably 4 or 5 chapters were this horrible manuscript. Sorry, it's a decent book. It gets really good toward the end, I think. And then, it just, then I just gave that up. So I figured they didn't even really notice. Nobody really cared that much. But, so you give up some creative control, but ultimately you're getting to do this thing that you love. And then I think also, it gives you an opportunity to sort of test some waters. So, for example, when I was doing the gamification books, I did 2, and a list came out like a year later, or within the year that the second book came out, and it was like the top 100 influencers in gamification, and I was number 98.
Damn.
I was 98.
No, that's fantastic.
It was the coolest thing ever. So then I was like, I'm going to be a gamification expert, because I thought that I could parlay this into like a career. I could like write more books about it, maybe even develop games, like, really just make this a thing. And that lasted for like a second. I think one of the games I tried to develop.
No, it was a good idea.
I was like trying to gamify like falling in love, or gamify like losing weight. I thought like we could develop like a card. It would be actually, everyone said it would be good for an app. Like it would,
yeah.
Anyway. We can, if anyone wants to reach out to me, we could totally discuss this further. I have some more ideas with the gamifying of of life.
Are you telling me to wrap it up, Sean? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I've blown your cover.
I was signaling
Our
like
secret.
we talked about.
But you said you were going to do this, and you pointed and I'm like, is there a fire in the other room?
There is a fire in the other room.
Okay, so we need to. Can I ask Joselin one more?
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I a little left field now. But so you're a very prolific writer. You're writing all the time, or you're rewriting, and it's not writing and revising are kind of two different kinds of processes, which we've talked about outside of this podcast recently on our writing group listserv. But you're doing all that stuff a lot. I have a problem a lot where I am like, I need to write, and then I have a massive like anxiety attack basically, and my whole brain freezes up, and I'm like, the creativity is gone. I am removed from the source of inspiration, and never again shall it flow. Like that's how it feels basically to be in my head. I assume you feel similar feelings sometimes too, because I think most people who do creative work do. How the fuck do you deal with it and get the fuck over it? Because obviously you're good at that.
Oh, thanks.
How? Tell me.
Okay. It's 100% one thing. And you know this, like it's writing group. Like I feel like I have a writing group I've been in for 10 years and it's every Tuesday. And so I'm submitting work probably every 6 weeks. So every 6, and if you ask me what I'm doing in between when I submit and like not submitting, I'm doing nothing. I do nothing. But when it's time for me to submit, I will sit down and write 20 pages, 30 pages. And because of that, in 10 years, I've written 3 novels, 1 like memoir, plus, tons of short stories and essays. And because I have to submit, I have to write something, and it keeps happening. So I think that having that culpability is the thing. Because I think anytime you say to a person, and people say, oh, it's because I'm too busy or I have 8 kids. But if I said to you, like, you need 10 minutes a day to sit down and write 1 page a day, and in a year you'll have a book, like we've all heard that. Nobody does that. Like nobody's like, I'm going to dedicate 10 minutes a day. They're like going to get in bed and watch Netflix or go to sleep. Like nobody has time. So that's not, it can't be like that. You have to have, in our case, 6 other people that care if you don't submit. Yeah. And that makes you have to do it. And so that I always say that to people, like get a writing partner, just a person who you're culpable to, or a group of people that you have this responsibility to, and then take it seriously. Like don't let yourself go, we'll just let this go. Like none of us let it go. If it's Tuesday night, we go to writing group, we show up and we have work. And if we say we're going to go, I don't know. I could count on literally a hand in 10 years, the number of people that have backed out like the week they're supposed to go, because we don't allow that in our writing group. Yeah. And so it's like, if you say you're going, you have to go, which is why people are nervous to say they're going, but they do, because they also know if they say no too many times, then we'll start to judge that. So, and I love that accountability. I think it's vital in any creative process if you don't have a job where you're expected to write or have a deadline. So that is my solution, and I promise it works.
Yeah, and I think having in-person meetings is better, but because I have talked to people who are like, I wish I could have that, but I'm in a town where like I don't know other writers, I don't know how to make that get going. And it seems like you can do that virtually. You can have like somebody, because it's about the accountability. Mm-hmm. So if it's like, okay, we're 2 of us, we're going to get a group of 6 people who live in 6 different cities, and once a week, 2 of us are going to email something to everybody, and we'll read it and we'll give you notes. Like you can do that. It's not, it loses something that you get from the in-person interaction. But so for listeners at home who are like, that's great, I don't live in Brooklyn, like you can modify that, because the bottom line, it's about having people you have to answer to, right? Mm-hmm. To like put muscle behind that deadline. Because if it's just, and I've tried to do the like, recently I was supposed to write a page a day and have a screenplay written by now, and that
where's my screenplay?
Yeah, that hasn't happened. But
But Nicole has never said she was going to submit and then not submitted. And we've been doing this. You and I have been doing this together for what, 4 years, 5 years?
5 years, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know.
No, I do it. If I have a deadline, I meet my deadline. It's true. That's why I'm sometimes like you said, being like, I don't want to go next week because then I know I'm going to have to do a thing. But that's an excellent piece of advice for everybody. And I wish we could talk about that longer, but Sean wants to play a game.
I want to play a game.
Because Sean doesn't have the attention span for this writer.
But it's a relevant game. It's a literary trivia game. It's very specifically. I'm calling it Uncle Sean because on Twitter and on Instagram and such, I am Uncle Sean. Uncle Sean's literary trivia, because the trivia is about literature, but it's also a little bit about me because I have a degree in literature, so
that's true.
relevant
He's
to
not.
this.
I thought he was pulling my leg the first time I heard that, but no,
I
it's facts.
have a diploma for something and everything. I mean, it's arguable whether or not it's from a real school, but so are you guys ready?
I guess.
There are multiple choice
know.
questions. So, there's 4 choices for each one. So it's a 25% chance you'll get it right if you guess. Actually, probably the numbers on that are different. There's probably a whole math thing.
Do the thing.
No, I want to talk about math. Okay, so first question. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Which of these William Faulkner books have I read?
Awesome.
The Sound and the Fury, Light in August, Garbage Pail Kids, the movie official film novelization, or none of the above. So that's
I'm going D.
D, none of the above.
I'm going with A.
You're going to go with A, The Sound and the Fury? All right. And the answer is D. I've only really read his short stories. I have The Sound and the Fury. I've started The Sound and the Fury.
Is I Lay Dying? That's Faulkner. That's my only
think
Faulkner
so,
I think
yeah.
I've
I
read.
believe so. I'm ignorant about literature. I went to an alternative school and took classes like films and books where we read Ordinary People and then watched Ordinary People.
As I Lay Dying is really good, but Faulkner.
I've read Rose for Emily. That's Faulkner, right? It's about the dead lady with the dead lover. No. It's very exciting. Okay, so question 2. Which classic science fiction novel did I write a paper on comparing it philosophically to Heart of Darkness in my history of criticism class? A, Stranger in a Strange Land. B, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? C, Ender's Game. D, none of the above.
I gotta, the second one was Philip K. Dick,
Correct.
and
Correct.
that's what was
Blade
based on
Runner.
that, Blade Runner.
Basis for Blade Runner, yes.
Okay, I'm gonna go with the Philip K. Dick.
Okay.
I was going to go with Heinlein, Stranger in a Strange Land.
Okay. And
But I love Ender's Game, even though he's a
I
Mormon.
haven't read it. Yeah, he's
I
so
have
weird.
friends who...
But it's
Love
such
Ender's
a good
Game.
book. I mean, even
heard.
as an adult, it holds up. You can read it
I
again
should
as an adult.
check it out.
It's really
'Cause
great.
all of my friends would talk about it in high school. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. They're like, oh, it's Ender's Game. I don't know what you're
He's
talking about.
such a good writer. I'm hoping he's not as awful as people say. I don't think he is. I'm gonna go with he's not.
I don't know. He seems to say a lot of awful things. But anyway.
Orson was named after Orson Scott Card and then I heard he was crazy, and now it's my dog, and now he's named after Orson Welles.
Oh, because
I wanted to name him Ender. My husband's like, we're not naming the dog Ender.
It's all funnier also if you know Orson the dog, who's just like the biggest pile of sweetness and
He's a sweetie.
and enthusiasm and.
So you definitely don't want to name after somebody who's a little questionable. So the answer was B, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Ooh, I'm winning. I'm 2 for 2.
She's 2 for 2.
I know you so well, Sean.
It's true. which is funny because I think this is only like the 3rd time we've been in the same room.
This is
So
impressive.
the third and final question, even though Nicole has already clearly lost.
I can't win. I can't unless
Can't come
are there
back.
are there triple points for this one because it's like triple hard.
Okay, we'll do triple points for this one.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
This one, unfortunately, now it seems that Joselin has a handicap because this one actually isn't about me. In Kafka's The Metamorphosis, why does Gregor transform into an insect? A, it's unclear. B, does he really, or is it just a metaphor for a change in personality? C, he's a jerk. D, he's cursed by a witch.
I lived in Prague.
But isn't it A and B?
I mean, I feel like it's a little subjective, this one.
I
'Cause
would.
that B is a little subjective. I'm going to go with B.
I did say this was unfair, right?
You could also arguably say C, but like D is not
What was C
an
again?
option.
Oh, you guys
C
have
is
no
he's
memory.
a jerk,
Oh.
which
yeah.
is subjective.
That's true.
True.
I mean, I'm gonna say A if I
gonna
have.
say A?
This is the kind of question that made me hate multiple choice in elementary school and realize it was fucked because they give you these subjective.
I'm going to say
things.
B. I'm confidently saying B, even though
A.
it's subjective.
A and B. Well, I would go with A, but I was also willing to accept B. So everybody wins.
No,
or
Joselin
C.
wins because Joselin got it right, and she got
the other two
right,
questions
and I
right.
just got. Or does
And
that?
so-
no,
and-
so she wins.
And your fabulous prizes. There's a cheap big pen over there that I'm not sure works. So
The gamification of this podcast.
I think
That makes us
I think
all
we need to
winners,
do
actually.
more of these.
I was so excited when you brought up a book I'd read. I was like, I've read The Metamorphosis.
I did too. I read that
Is it a short? It's a short story.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's a
Short,
short
yeah.
story. Yeah.
I think I read The Metamorphosis and Other Stories, I
Oh,
believe.
nice. I think I only read The Metamorphosis out of the stories.
I had a class at my alternative junior high where one of the first things that we were analyzing as far as literature was like, oh, we're gonna close read The Metamorphosis, and I was like, this dude turns into a bug. Does he turn into a bug though?
No,
It's maybe a metaphor. Maybe he does.
that's why I was so thrown by A and B, and then there was no all of the above.
Oh, yeah,
I thought,
yeah.
anyway, I could talk about
It's an unfair. The whole game is unfair. All the games from now on are going to be unfair.
I have some notes on your game that we can discuss off podcast, I suppose, since we need to.
Wait, you want it to be fair?
No, I just have a lot of feelings about it, and I need to, share
Need to
them.
process.
I need to process.
It's
you know
because
me.
you guys are oldest and games are harder for you. I'm much more open.
No, I'm
to
a
it.
middle child.
Oh, you're middle.
I'm middle.
I don't know what happens. Middles have a hard time with games though because usually they get paired with the parent, and the oldest and the youngest get paired. Like if you're playing did that happen for you?
I don't know.
Like-
I had a hard time.
come on,
that
your-
part.
Your
Like if
parents
you were
didn't
playing
love
like
you
a
enough to play
team
games with
game,
you.
I
Come
guess
on.
you probably weren't. You probably weren't playing that many
point.
team games.
We played. No, we did, but mostly like with my sisters. My sisters and I would play team games.
But how would you be a team with three?
Um,
Seems like the parent or the babysitter or
You
somebody
all
would
just
have
teamed
to
up on
be
your
like.
oldest, didn't you?
no. Usually it was either it was. We're not going to go here. I could tell you about how it was, but there's a lot to say. I want to say like there was a lot of bending of rules. Maybe somebody was paired with a stuffed animal or something like that. Maybe things like that
cute.
happened.
Nice.
I think
Somebody's you, isn't it? Nobody wanted to be on your team.
Oh,
did they?
a lot of times, absolutely. That's
You kind of didn't want to be on anybody else's team, though.
oh
did you?
well, that's a nice way to look at it.
You're kind of a lone ranger.
Aw.
That's a nice way for me to retrofit my childhood. Thanks, Sean.
Middle children
that's what
are
I'm here
bitter.
for.
One.
They tend to be bitter because of these types of things.
Oh yeah, middle. Yeah.
Nicole's not bitter at all. I don't know what you're
I'm
talking
gonna
about.
start a new podcast.
Nicole's bitter.
For middle circus. Being a middle child, and my Enneagram type is 4 for left field comment that nobody knows what I'm talking about.
No idea what you're talking about.
I'll tell you later. It's actually one of the reasons I like the name of our company.
Okay.
Because I'm like, oh, that's like my Enneagram type.
Well, the name of our company is also a literary reference that people can try and figure out.
But that's a mystery one. We can't say. We can't say.
Oh, interesting.
But anyway, great game, Sean.
I know, it's super fun.
That
Congrats.
was really great. I
There's-
love when I win, so thank you.
Yeah, you not only were our guest, you were also the winner.
Yay. This is the best.
I bet you didn't know when you came over here that you were gonna win this game.
I know.
And
It's
a
amazing.
crappy pen.
You can put that on your
Where's
new
my crappy
website.
pen?
Yeah,
It's
it's
over
over
there. I'll grab it in
there.
a second. I got the headphones in.
Yeah. So where can we find the Jocelyn, you, the winner, on the internet? Where can we?
Joselin Linder as my Twitter handle, JOSELINDER. It's economical because I mushed the L's together. And then Joselin Linder on Facebook. And I say yes to everybody as long as you don't have like no friends or like only like weird, sexy pictures of yourself. I will friend you. And Instagram, I think it's also Joselin Linder.
Great. And your book came out on March 14th.
Yes.
And it is called The Family Gene, and everyone should check it out. I'm Nicole. You can find me at Nicole W. Solomon on Twitter. Nicole Whitty, that's NicoleWitte on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I probably will not friend you back if I don't know you in real life, but if you send me a nice message and explain why I should be your friend, I might. And Sean, let's hear about you.
I'm Uncle Sean, as I said.
Oh.
I'm Uncle Sean like everywhere, but don't friend me on Facebook because I'm not there. I mean, I'm there, but I'm not. I don't want more random Facebook friends.
And we're 4 Mile Circus. That's you said that already, didn't you?
No, I said that last time. 4 Mile Circus.
Number 4, the word mile, the word circus.com.
All together.
All together, and that's at .com on the internet and also on Twitter, Instagram.
Yeah.
We have a Facebook page,
Yes.
YouTube.
You should like the Facebook page.
Please like our Facebook page. When we get 1,000 likes, Sean's gonna dye his beard
We
red.
still have the dye over there.
We have the dye. We can show it to Joselin and she can vouch for it.
I liked it already. I liked the page. I feel like it's been good for me liking it. I think it would be good for all of you to like it.
I think it makes everybody better people.
It does, really.
Yeah, and Joselin's a winner, so you should listen to her advice because then maybe you too can be a winner.
Maybe.
Maybe.
It remains to be seen. You have to like the page and let us know.
Yeah.
So we'll talk to you all again soon when we are talking to somebody else.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice, and check out other 4 Mile Circus services and projects at 4milecircus.com, as well as 4 Mile Circus on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Watch our first VOD release, Nicole's award-winning feminist phone sex horror comedy Small Talk, at 4milecircus.com/store,